Welcome back, and we're once again live here from the Stockholm School of Economics and Handelsdagarna. And I'm sitting here with a familiar face at this school, I must say, one of the co-founders of Klarna, currently running Norrsken. Welcome to the studio, Niklas Adalberth.
Thank you so much.
And I would like to start out by getting to know who you were before all of these entrepreneurial ventures of yours. Who was the young Niklas?
I don't even know who I am today, even less back then, I guess. But as an average kid from Uppsala, maybe perhaps a little bit curious. I remember my dad used to joke about that I can do whatever I want in life as long as I become a doctor. So I guess it was some kind of like seed to a performance-based self-consciousness, which I think most students here have a relation to. So if you perform, you feel good about yourself. And that was important for me quite early on. I had an older brother, 2-year older brother, and we used to compete about everything. And being a little bit younger, I never got any attention in the dinner table, so basically performance was my way of getting my voice heard, I guess.
Right. And to my understanding, you started Klarna very early here at your time at Handelshögskolan. And I'm not going to dwell on Klarna for too long, but could you tell us about in that startup phase, what was going on in your head?
So yes, it was 3 months into my studies. Coming from Uppsala, it was all about. I thought Stockholm was like the biggest city in the world. It was like the Big Apple to me, and everyone was so cool. So my first what I had in mind was just to fit in and be able to do the studies in a good way and try to balance the student, the union activities together with my studies. And then this proposal came up of joining 2 friends to start Klarna.
Did you know them before school? Or?
Yeah, so one of them, Sebastian, was a childhood friend, so I knew him, and he introduced me to Victor. And I had no clue about starting business, even less about the financial services or starting a bank. I mean, that was, I had experience from Burger King, basically. And so that was really, really foreign to me, and I thought the studies was really fun, and not the studies perhaps, but the student activities was really fun, and the new friends. So it was not a given that I would pursue this.
And in that phase, what was your role?
So at Klarna,
like in the startup phase of Klarna.
So when we had this idea and we decided to give it a shot, it was quite hard because we had no experience whatsoever. We had no money, and we knew nothing about technology. So I think that it was all about doing these tasks every day, and we just came up with 100 new tasks and just divided them among us, and then tried to execute on as many as possible. So I think that I had probably all kind of different formal roles in the company. I was everything from janitor to deputy CEO during this time, and I think you need to be quite flexible when it comes to startup, that you need to move around and do what's needed at that specific time. But Victor was the analytical person, Sebastian was the more creative person, and I was probably more the doer kind of person. So I guess that was my overall arcing role at Klarna in the beginning.
And like learning from that experience, what would you say to those students here who want to pursue like a more entrepreneurial career? Like, how should they prepare for that?
So I think, first of all, I think it's no better timing in your career to start a business than when you are a student. I mean, most of the students don't have any other commitments, no family to support, perhaps no mortgages or other commitments. So if you're going to start a company, now is the time. I think that's the first message. And second one is that to try not to do it in a too overcommitment way. Start slow instead. Start during the weekends, perhaps. Start during the late evenings to experiment, try out. I mean, the idea you have in the beginning will never be the one you have in the end anyway, so you might just start as early as possible to experiment. And then when you have something that you think that you can get an investment from, or maybe get the first customer, that's when you can actually maybe put the studies on the side, or whatever you need to do in order to focus. Because I think focus is a very, very important aspect to be successful.
Of course, of course.
And then I would also say that finding like a great founding team is important. There's so much more high success with a founding team rather than a founding person.
Right.
So to be able to find people that hopefully complement you, or if not, just people that are like you and that can help out doing this startup.
Right, right. And so moving on to your current undertaking, Norrsken, could you tell us maybe a little bit about how that idea came into mind, and perhaps also what Norrsken really is?
Sure. So I think it came even before Stockholm School of Economics, but as long as I can remember, I had a goal in life to be financial independent. As long as I became rich, I would be the most happiest guy alive, sort of. And when you join Stockholm School of Economics, it kind of get confirmed. You get to see like different presentations on people flying with business class or hanging out in airport lounges and living a successful life. So financial success to me was equal success, sort of.
Right.
And the problem with that goal I had in life to be financially independent was that I reached it.
Yeah.
And I felt nothing. Just complete emptiness. Nothing changed from the day before to the day after. So to me it was clear with that experience that this was not a goal worth striving for. So I tried to look into what the research said about success and happiness, and most of it pointed in the same direction, that to live a happy life is to live a meaningful life.
Right.
To not only be there for yourself, it's not only about that you should be successful, but actually to enable other people to have a value and to be able to contribute.
Sure.
So with that in mind, I tried to, I visited a number of different charity organizations in Sweden, and I was very impressed by these organizations. I think they're doing a tremendous job. There's a lot of talent working at, the big ones. But I also saw that perhaps a need to complement them with knowledge in technology. Not all of them are very technology-based. And also, if you are a traditional foundation or a charity organization, many times you're dependent on private donations. So people making these daily donations, more or less. And if you then, as a general secretary or responsible for the charity organization, if you then screw that up, betting on a specific tech project, which most fails, right? Most of the tech initiatives fails. If you would do that with donor dollars, you would be crucified in media. You would not be able to keep your job. So you have these organizations that are doing a very good job and are supposed to solve our most pressing issues, but to some extent they are not maybe the best to take risk and betting on different technology projects for good.
Right, right.
So there was some kind of need here that I saw, I guess, and that eventually led me to quit at Klarna after 11 years to start Norrsken Foundation. And we're trying to do exactly what I was just saying, and that is to combine technology and entrepreneurship, but not to make maximum shareholder value or make me even richer, but rather to make maximum impact. So those are like the foundations of what we're trying to do.
Sure, sure. And I mean, the underlying philosophy of that, like investing long-term in these companies that want to help out, I think speaks to a lot of people. But how do you work with that company, like on a day-to-day basis, to make it happen? Having a work day that's supposed to be all about helping people out. What's it like? Like, what do you do?
Right. So how do we do this? How do we combine entrepreneurship and technology to create a better society? So basically, to simplify, we do it in two ways. One is that we have an investment fund where we can invest in these types of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs that have a business model that clearly solves a social problem.
Right.
So for example, we invested in a company called Karma, where you can actually, as a user, you can save food that otherwise would be wasted.
Yeah.
We invested in a company called Ignitia that on a daily basis send out 500,000 text messages to poor farmers in Africa, where they get a very accurate local tropical weather forecast.
Right.
So if they should plant the seed that day or not. And if they follow that guidelines of this weather forecast, they improve their yield by 60% by just getting that text message. That's a huge improvement using technology to enable them for a better life.
Sure.
So those types of companies where you can make money as an entrepreneur, but meanwhile doing that, you're also improving the world.
Right.
So we invest in those types of entrepreneurs. That's one thing that we're doing. And the other thing that we're doing is that we have this co-working space here in quite close to Stockholm School of Economics at Spårvarshallarna, where we subsidize space for people trying to improve the world. So today we have 350 people there sitting under the same roof at a subsidized cost. And we're trying to create as much synergies as possible for them and try to put the spotlight on them as well. That business today should not only be about shareholder value, it should be actually to take on social challenges as well. I think that's the best way of doing business, at least.
And I find that very interesting. And I mean, you touched all of this before, but we talk about a lot more now than before, I think, about effective altruism here at school. And what's sort of your overall take on it, like beyond Norrsken and what you do? How should people in general view this or work with it?
So to me, when I decided that I wanted to do something meaningful and perhaps not stay at Klarna forever, I was a little bit lost. I had no clue. What should I pursue? How should I think about this? And I was so happy when I stumbled upon the philosophy of effective altruism. I think that was about 4 years ago. And that helped me, at least, really to sort what makes most sense. How can you be as valuable as possible to the world? Because what it actually says is that how do you, per dollar invested, how do you do most impact? And the way I understood it as well is that you should take use of your own knowledge in trying to improve the world as much as possible. And to me, I know a little bit about entrepreneurship, I know a little bit about technology. Then those two components are the ones I should use to make a difference. And the answer to that is Norrsken.
Right.
So to me, effective altruism have been critical in what we're doing today. And the way it should be applied, perhaps on a broader basis, that I think it can be applied to anyone, especially if you look at, for example, at what kind of career to pursue. I think ages ago it was all about, perhaps it was even more steered towards you should pursue a career where you can find a job. Now it's more like follow your passion. And if you follow your passion, most of the people want to go into sports and music. Those are the passions of most people, but only 3% of all the jobs.
Right.
So I think that you should absolutely not follow your passion. That would be a disaster. Instead, what I think you should think of is effective altruism, and rather answer the question, how could you be most valuable? Because that would create most meaning. If you create most meaning, you will be the most happiest person.
Right. So you're basically saying that sort of find your strength and then use that in an effective way to like create value for the world.
Exactly. I think that's the best career advice, at least, if you ask me right now, here. But it's easy for me to say, I guess, since I pursued another career that made me financially independent. But that would be my career advice. And also to do that in a way where you can use existing business model. You can use the market economy that we live in today to try to do that. And most people here at Stockholm School of Economics are super talented. Use that talent to pursue that goal. Right.
And then lastly, I want to touch upon, since, I mean, you're a tech guy, sort of. And we talked earlier with Joel Hellemark about AI and the future of AI and machine learning, how that can impact business in the future. Do you have a view on what that's going to mean for business in the coming, let's say, 5 or 10 years?
I have no clue. To be honest, the more I read about a specific issue or a challenge, the less I understand, I think. Then you realize how complex each issue is.
Right.
Could AI be used in a very good way? Of course. Could be fantastic. Could it be used in a very negative way? Yes, that could happen as well. What will happen? I'm way too stupid to answer that question, and there's so much more smarter people to do that. So I don't know.
But are any of the companies that Norrsken is working with, like in that sort of field of machine learning or AI?
A lot of them are. To name one example, former SSC students as well started a company called Doctrine, and they are using AI and machine learning to improve primary healthcare. And the primary healthcare providers that implemented their services, they make a huge efficiency gain. I think that they got down, like the time spent with a doctor as a patient, I think it's down by almost 50% by having the users instead answer a couple of questions before, that's then matched through a database, and the doctor will know what kind of treatment you should have and what kind of sickness you have. So it could be used in the most fantastic ways, and I think we should not regulate it in a very specific way now, because we have no clue what this will lead to anyway.
Right. And there you have it. Thank you so much for coming here. That's all we have today. And we will be back in a few moments with Christian Luuk. Niklas Adalberth, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much.